Welcome back to our course Environmental Engineering. As we discussed in the last lecture, just a basic about what is the background of this course, why we are studying, what is the intent of this course. And today we will enter into the actual topic of this course. So before going to start this course, I want to give clarity on entire this course is framed in three different topics. Those three are: the first one is related to water supply, water supply, and the second module of this course is regarding water distribution system. So we will discuss here various distribution methods, patterns from the source, and the third one is solid waste management. Solid waste management. So we will discuss various integrated waste management systems, and then also we will discuss hazardous wastes also in this particular module. And the fourth topic is what are the various methods or various network system is like a convergency system, divergency system is there to supply the water to the treatment plant. In order to treat the treatment plant, simply we can call it as wastewater treatment plant. In order to supply the used water, what are the various network system, various pipeline system we are providing to supply entire water to this treatment plant for the treatment purposes, that we are discussing here in this particular topic. And the last topic of this particular course, environmental engineering, is treatment process, wastewater treatment process. Here we will going to learn, we are going to about what sedimentary and primary, secondary, these various falculation, coagulations, all those things we are going to discuss in this particular topic. So in present in today's lecture we will discuss, we are in this topic, water supply. So rest of the things I'm going to arise from here. So this water supply is the topic of water supply, and quality, water quality, and as well as water demand is the main contents of this topic is protected water supply and as well as water uses, population forecast, design period, water demand, types of demand, and factors affecting the fluctuations, then storage capacity and water quality and testing, drinking water standards according to the WHO or according to the highest codes, and then source of water supply, intake, infiltration, and as well as galleries we are going to discuss in this topic, water supply. So here coming to our first topic is water supply, protected water supply and water uses. So I'm going to start this topic. So here, as we discussed a little bit yesterday in the yesterday lecture, that protected water supply is nothing but very simple. Whatever the source we have, whatever the source we identified in order to reach the future demand, that source, that particular source may be a subsurface source or surface source. That source must be a protected. So in what way we are giving the protection? So that is the big question here. So majority of the majority cases, there is a lot of choices for contamination of surface sources compared to the subsurface. So we'll look into what are the various surface sources and what are the various subsurface sources. Then how we'll protect those we'll see in this particular topic. So here coming to the as I given some what introduction here, the health aspects, how can water source protection optimize my local water system. So then characteristics of pathogens and as well as contaminants to be identified, then only we will take some appropriate action in order to prevent these contaminants in the water. Then approaches to water source protection and what is the protection plan. So we should have some well plan, then only we will protect the water surface or subsurface sources. And surface water source protection measures and as well as groundwater source protection measures. These are the various topics we will discuss in this protected water supply, under protected water supply. Now, the water source protection means protecting from contamination and as well as overuse. So the production simply will control the product, will give us protection at year itself. One is overuse and then contamination. So we need to provide the source which we identified, that is free from the contamination, and then we need to aware the people not to waste the water. So then we can save some water. So both water quality and quantity we drink and use, thus reducing the risk to public health from the exposure to the contaminated water. So then the objective why we need to be protect the source of water. So the various objectives you can see here. Once if you take appropriate decision in order to protect our source, so then it is the main objective in this is we can to supply safe and as well as wholesome water to the consumers. Once if you protect free from the contamination and pathogenics, then we can supply safe and wholesome water uh, to the consumers, and as well as to supply the sufficient quantity of waters. Then at the same time, another objective is of this protected water supply is to supply water in convenient time, then convenient points. So here this is comes under the distribution point of view that we will discuss in the coming modules. So this is very important because once if you are not supplied water in the convenient time, so then the usage may be more compared to our expectations. So then to supply water to at a reasonable cost, then to encourage the personal and households cleanliness of their users of the user. This is the main objectives, various objectives of this water production. And then the components of protected water supply, as we are discussing, the protected water supply is the source of the water is subsurface and as well as surface sources. Whereas in case of surface, these four all comes under the surface category, the such as ponds, lakes, stream, river, storage, reservoirs, and as well as oceans. So generally this ocean water may not be used for the drinking purposes, and very extreme cases like in some developed countries like Dubai and those countries, they usually treat this ocean water for they use for drinking and as well as agricultural purposes. So for this the desalination they will do. That is one of the treatment method, and that also we'll discuss in the coming lectures. And then this is about these three are comes under the subsurface source of the water. So those are the subsurface sources are maybe springs and infiltrations and as well and tube wells. So as we discussed in the yesterday lecture, the complete process from evaporation to precipitation, then after runoff, then after water, how it is going to the surface after percolation, it will settle somewhere. There are some aquifer, aquiclude, aquitard. So that we will discuss in detail about those in coming lectures. So this comes under whenever the water percolate into the ground and it stored somewhere, that is subsurface source, and whenever the water is started flowing on the surface, then it may mix in the ocean. So this is a surface source. So similarly, we have so as we are discussing about the protected water supply, we need to see what are the various measures are there to protect the surface water and as well as subsurface water. So here you can see why we need to protect the source. So you can see here various possibilities for contaminating the water. So here the wastage from the person. So then we supposed to protect this source. Suppose if you consider this as a source of water, we supposed to give some protection with the buffaloes and animals, and then the fact whatever the waste coming from the factory, it should not mix with this source water. And then this is you can see this is a factory outlet. Suppose if this outlet is open to this, if it is merging with this source water, suppose for example, if you consider this is as a surface source, so lot of wastage mix may come and merge with this source. So then this entire water may become polluted. So in order to avoid this kind of situation, we supposed to give some protection to this source water. This the source water, as I told, the source may be a surface source, subsurface sources. So in all the way, we supposed to give the protection from all the categories. So now see, there is a possibility when this industrial waste and when the solid waste if it is mixed with the source, so then there may be then there may be 100% possibility for contaminating the water. So then so once if you supply the contaminated water to the public, then it is the health issues will come, and it comes uh, uh, do some lot of damage orally. So how can water source protection optimize my local water system? This is one of the major topic. So here the water the this we are going to measure how it is going to be optimize our local water system. So this is in three terms. One is water source protection. Actually, it involves the production. It involves the production of surface water. Those are lake, river, man-made reservoirs. These are comes under the surface, and groundwater source like sprinklers, dug wells, drilled wells, to avoid the water contamination. This is one of the major point we need to be considered while protecting the water. The very slow flow of groundwater makes rehabilitation of the contaminated aquifer both costly and as well as time incentive. So then, the establishing adequate water source protection has been recognized as the most suitable and cost-effective method. So this is recognized as most suitable and as well as cost-effective method to keep contaminant out of the drinking water and making costly water. So the purification measures and construction of new wells is unnecessary. So we supposed to in order to protect our local water system, we supposed to follow these things. So then first we need to understand how much our water got protected. Then that we will get from the by measuring the various contaminants and pathogens presence in the water. So this is part of water quality point of view. Though for that we need to be understand what are the various characteristics of the pathogens and as well as contaminants. So the types of pathogens and as well as contaminants, you can see here: bacteria, virus, and parasitic protozoa, and as well as eliminate. These are the various pathogens, and these are the contaminants. You can see the various examples of these contaminants are nitrate, fluoride, chloride, and as well as oils, diesels. So when there may be choices of mixing these wastage into the our source. So there may be n number of possibilities for mixing this source. As we are if you see our current trends, a lot of due to a lot of urbanization, the industrial growth is increasing, and the industry waste may may mix with this source protected water. Then obviously the water get contaminated. So then in order to avoid this, we must provide the protection to our source water. So in order to avoid from this pathogenic and as well as contaminants, we must provide the protection to our source. So here the source of pathogens and as well as contaminants. Source, as we have discussed the various characteristics of the pathogens and as well as contaminants. Then what is the source for these pathogens and as well as contaminants? You can see here, you can observe here. See, for example, this is a groundwater flow. This is a water table, and this is a surface. You can see various sources, how they're entering into the groundwater, and how they're getting making the water contaminate. So then those sources are underground tanks, chemical storage, and then construction of underground storage tanks also one of the source, and the chemical storage is also one of the source for developing these pathogens and as well as contaminating the water, and accidental spills of hazardous materials. Then spreading of sewage treatment sludges also is one of the major source for contaminating and creating more bacteria. And then septic system, animal feedlots, and storage and spreading of road salt, underground pipelines or sewers, and use and spoil of the fertilizers and other pesticides and landfills, and private and as well as abandoned wells also a major source for protecting the water. So suppose this underground storage tank, suppose there may be if we improper construction materials we used, then there may be a chances for the leakage of that whatever the chemicals, whatever the things we stored, that may be a chances for still percolating into the ground surface, then they may mix with this water body, then this entire become contaminated. So then chemical storage. Similarly, the chemical storage is also one. Once any other chemicals added into the water, the water quality become reduces. Then that is also affect the public health. So then the various hazardous materials also, then splitting up sewage treatment sludge. So suppose we usually supply we usually get the water into the treatment plant. There in treatment plant we usually treat the water, and after completion of the various levels of treatment, we will get the sludge as a wastage. So uh, uh, if you not followed in proper sludge drying beds and sludge disposal, then there may be a chances for it may be mixing somewhere with the uh, sourced water, then that becomes a protected, and we supposed to uh, take care all of these things, then we can avoid this in pathogens and as well as contaminants in the water. So we supposed to keep in our mind very while giving while giving the permission to any industry, or while even constructing our residential or domestic house purposes. So they supposed to take care about their septic system. It should not be there should not be any leakage, and then if it is leakage, if for example you take this is a water source and this is some residential apartment, there is the septic system is there somewhere may leak and may enter into this below the ground level. So below the ground level, when it is enter into this sources, then again the source people they extract the water here for various drinking purposes. So this is also one of the level of contaminating, and then we supposed to give some awareness to people in order to protect their septic tank system properly, and then these are the other various possibilities for getting the water contaminated. And now we can see dispersion of the pathogens and as well as contamination. So migration of contaminants in any unconfined and confined aquifer. You can see this. You can observe very clearly how this is, for example, this is entirely a water body, and the below the ground surface. So how this is entering into the aquifer and as well as confined aquifer and confined aquifer. See how this is getting, how this see this the entire these particles may settle down, and then this entire water gets contaminated, and the people use same water for drinking purposes. So people use same water for the drinking purposes, and it leads to lot of problems, health issues will come, and movement of insoluble contaminants in groundwater. So oil spills accumulate on the water table and spread horizontally. So this is, you can see soils and land. This is the surface, and whenever the factory outlets mix with the this is the water body, and then water table level this one. So now you see this much of level got contaminated. So this is if the time increases, this becomes increases, and whole this area, this entire water body become contaminated, and this entire water suppose if you use same water distribute for the public needs and for other demands, then it will be a huge problem to us. So then what are the various prevent and treat and restore methods to protect the water supply? So the prevention and treatment and restore the ecosystem. So this we need to be maintained in order to provide our water, provide proper protection to our source. As many surface water sources are used for drinking water purposes, protection is vital. So generally, three basic strategies exist for protection. Those three are prevention, treatment, and as well as restore ecosystem. So in case of prevention, no discharge of waste pollutants, or untreated water from domestic, industrial, and agricultural uses. So optimized water use and as well as practice in agricultural order to stop nutrients from the entering aquatic system. So we supposed to prevent these things by we supposed to give some preventive measure. We supposed to take some preventive measures to stop the entry of other materials in the aquatic system of the water. So then, for this, the example you can see by establishing the buffer zones, we can protect this protect here. So here, uh, treatment. The treatment of polluted water prior to the discharge and stormwater management, ensuring that the runoff cannot be transport pollutants untreated into the water. So here, once rainfall is occurred, the after some time the water has, the water start run off, and then this also sometimes it may be polluted. So then for that we need to be a stormwater management, because our the chemically contaminated water and the rainwater uh, not equally polluted. So we need to be take prevent proper measurement management system to differentiate to separate the water, the used wastewater, the domestic water, industrial water from the storm water. So then restore ecosystem, enable or support natural rehabilitation process leads to get the restore our ecosystem properly. So then another one we need to motivate the people also in these regards in order to protect the surface water. So irrespective of the irrespective of this religious, if you motivate the people, if you people realize it, then we'll protect our surface sources. Then it fulfill the future demand also. So in implementing the water source protection requires actually implementing a water surface, especially we are talking about the surface here. Implementing the water source protection is requires a legal framework. A legal framework. This usually involves a protection plan, which we should have some proper protection plan, which formulate the responsibilities, specific protection measures, and basic rules that apply for all community members and water source users. So irrespective of their community, irrespective of their community, we suppose whatever the action plan we have, that must be we need to take the all possibilities to execute that action plan towards to protect the our source. So actually that's why it is required. So the various communities are involved here. That's why it is required a legal framework in this case. So then we can protect our source water. Then it will we can supply the same water. We can reach the future demands. So the several actions. There are various actions, but only one objective. That is our objectives. We need to protect the water. So there are several actions for that. In order to achieve this object, we have several actions. The first one is location siting of the water source. So here, don't construct the well springs close to the potential source for the contamination. Stick to minimum distance rules to be followed. For example, if you take for example, if it is this is our source of water, so constructing of a communal dumping site, so we must maintain the 100 meters distance. So suppose if you want to construct a communal dumping site, for in then from the source it's supposed to be a 100 meters distance away. So we can construct here, but we should not construct within the 100 meters. Then store of pesticides and fertilizers fuels also should maintain 100 meters. Then cemetery habitats should be maintained with the 50 meters in distance with the source. And building a house and a pit rattles and animal pens private, and this there is a proper some minimum distance is given. We need to follow, we need to follow this. Then we can uh, give some protection to our source. This is one of the step while protecting the source we need to be followed. And the step 2 is construction of spring and as well as well protection. So the springs can be protected by installation of spring tapping and as well as a spring box and an adequate drainage system. So this can be provided by installing spring tapping and adequate drainage system. So drilled and as well dug wells need a proper sealing. So once if you see, this is the sealing. This is the sealing. So this must need a proper sealing. Without sealing, there may be a possibility of entry of other contaminated materials into this. So that's why it required a proper sealing. And an upon guarantee that no contaminant enter the well from the access point area. An impermeable lining for dug wells or casing or drilled wells make sure that no close to surface water enters the well. So it is an impermeable layer, so it never allows this any contaminated water into this. So drainage keep the area is dry. So then the step 3 is fencing. In 4 steps we are discussing 4 steps to protect our water supply. The step one, in the step one we discussed whatever the communal dumping sites, so we should not construct within the 100 kilometer to our source. And similarly some other contaminated possible contaminated things we should not construct within the small distance range to our source. Then coming to the second step we discussed is the second step we discussed is construction of spring and as well as well protection. So we should maintain proper protective for this with the impermeable layers. So the third one is fencing. So in a fenced inner protection zone with a radius of 10 to 20 meters. So it is a all activities posing a risk of contamination are restricted. Farming, grazing, firing, applications of pesticides and fertilizer, construction of latrines, use of chemicals also we will give the protection to our source. So if you construct a fencing with a radius of 10 to 20 meter, for example, if you take this is our source. So from this source by maintaining 10 to 20 meters, if you provide some fencing, then we can avoid the entry of other contaminant and other things into this source. So then an extended protection zone is about 100 meters. So this is the initial, can say 10 to 20 meters we're supposed to keep. And in case of extended protected zone, we must maintain the 100 meters radius. You can see. So this is the fencing. We supposed to, for example, if you take this is our source, then we supposed to maintain this much of 100 to 150 meters. There is a proper fencing in order to provide the protection to our source of water. So then the fourth step is set up rules for community members. So then any protection plan rises and falls with the behavior of the community members, their attitude towards the plan and their knowledge. Besides the installation of the constructional measures, a simple rules should be set up and communicated by the local caretakers. So those simple rules are people do not defect close to the well, and then do not let your animals graze close to the well. Suppose this is a well, whatever maybe we whatever the 100 meters or 150 meters, they supposed to maintain these things. This is if you provide this as a guidelines, then for irrespective of the community members, then we can achieve this target. So here, do not defect the close to the well. Do not let your animals graze close to the well, and do not throw any garbage into the well. So these are the various preventive measures. If you take, then we can provide the proper protection to our source. And then another step is management of operation and as well as maintenance. So here the caretaker has to involve here in order to provide in managing the various installation setup in order to take the proper preventive measures. So that is, he has to do some regular inspection and cleaning and repair of spring installation and as well as wells. The caretaker must take care about this inspection and cleaning. He has to he must have the updated data. I mean, what is happening, what are the surroundings or new constructions are getting, and how is there any possibility for contaminating the water with that new constructed thing. So he has to do all these analysis, then only we will take some more preventive measures, then we can save our source of water. So monitoring and activities is the surrounding area. So that we said if it is our source, this is our source, then we has to monitor the surrounding, what is happening. So then what are the various construction activities taking place, what are the various chemical factories are installing. So we have to monitor, then accordingly we'll take preventive measures. So upkeeping the protection zones, repair of the fence. So whatever the fencing, if you do proper inspection, and if any due to any reason the fencing got collapsed, then if he identify, the caretaker identify, then we have a charge to repair that fencing also. And then we can reinstall the same. So the check for the appropriate operation by users and provide the health education, and then check whether the basic rules are respected by the users. So whether they are following our basic rules, which we discussed in the previous slide, like they should not we should not construct any animal garbage storing point within our source. So that things between the caretaker has to check whether the people are following the regular rules or not. So then the another one is seal and plug unemployed or unused wells. So this is one of the major important thing. So this is the well, and you can see here the proper sealing. If you provide the proper sealing, then we will save the this water, this ground surface. This is a one of the subsurface source. So we will save this source from the contamination. So can allow a surface runoff to directly enter into the aquifer, contaminating the aquifer and as well as well. So suppose if you are not provided a proper sealing, then after rainfall, the same water will flow into this well. So again it may become contaminated, and can be possible, there is a possible physical safety threat, and they are often not marked or covered, and can pose a hazard to people or animal that might fall into them. So that's why that's this not only entry of rainwater into these open wells. So once if you provide the proper sealing, then we can avoid fall in the animal or man fall into the wells also. So with this I am closing the protected water supply, and I request all the members, please take care of your source. Then we can we will keep the water for future demands. We have possibility to supply the water to reach the demands in future. So with respect of the religions, I'm requesting, protect your source and keep water for the future demand. Thank you.
Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.